They said it would never happen. They said the story was complete. But now, almost 2 decades after the first film redefined what a fashion drama could be, the devil is finally back. The world of high fashion is about to shake again, because The Devil Wears Prada 2 has officially been confirmed. This is not just another sequel. It's the return of one of cinema's most iconic characters, a symbol of power, elegance, and fear, Miranda Priestly. And this time, she isn't just walking back into Runway magazine. She's stepping into a whole new world of fashion, media, and influence. When The Devil Wears Prada was released in 2006, no one could have predicted how big of a cultural phenomenon it would become. Yes, it was a story about fashion, but it was also so much more. It was about ambition, power, sacrifice, and the price of success. The film didn't just appeal to people who loved designer clothes or glossy magazines. It spoke to anyone who had ever worked under a boss that demanded the impossible, anyone who had ever struggled between their career and personal life, and anyone who had ever dared to dream of something bigger. Now, after years of speculation, rumors, and endless fan requests, the long-awaited sequel has been confirmed. This announcement didn't just land like any other movie news, it broke the internet. Social media exploded with excitement, memes resurfaced, and fans instantly began quoting Miranda Priestly's unforgettable lines. That's all. In fact, it felt like everyone was suddenly back in 2006, reliving the moment they first watched Andy Sachs nervously walk into Miranda's office with a coffee in hand. But what makes this sequel so significant is the timing. The fashion industry today is not the same world it was when the first movie came out. Back then, glossy magazines like Runway were at the top of the game, dictating what people wore, who they admired, and what counted as style. But today, fashion lives online. It thrives on Instagram, TikTok, and influencers with millions of followers. Magazines no longer hold the same kind of power they once did, and that sets the stage for a fascinating new conflict. How does someone like Miranda Priestly, a woman who ruled the print era with an iron fist wrapped in Prada, adapt to a world where trends change overnight and where style is shaped by viral videos rather than carefully curated covers? That's the burning question fans can't wait to see answered. The announcement of The Devil Wears Prada 2 is not just about nostalgia, it's about evolution. The producers know they aren't just bringing back old characters for the sake of it. They're revisiting a world that can reflect our present-day reality. And let's be honest, part of the reason this news is so electrifying is because it brings back one of the most unforgettable performances in film history. Meryl Streep as Miranda Priestly didn't just play a character. She created an icon. From her icy glare to her perfectly timed size, Miranda became the ultimate representation of authority. She was terrifying yet mesmerizing. Fans have spent years debating whether she was a villain or simply a powerful woman in a man's world. And now, audiences will finally get a chance to see her again, but the announcement didn't stop there. Along with Meryl Streep, it has been strongly hinted that Anne Hathaway and Emily Blunt will also return, reprising their roles as Andy Sachs and Emily Charlton. If confirmed, this means we'll get to see how their characters have grown, changed, and possibly collided again in the ruthless world of fashion. Imagine Andy, now a successful journalist or editor, crossing paths with Miranda once more. Imagine Emily, who once dreamed of Paris, now carving her own path in the industry. These possibilities alone are enough to spark endless speculation. The legacy of the first film ensures that this sequel comes with high expectations. The Devil Wears Prada is often considered one of the greatest workplace dramas ever made, and its influence can still be felt today. Countless people say it inspired them to pursue fashion, journalism, or even just stand up for themselves in toxic work environments. It became more than just a film. It became a blueprint for ambition, resilience, and self-discovery. That's why the news of a sequel isn't just exciting, it feels historic. It feels like the return of a story that shaped a generation, and as fans around the world share their favorite quotes, rewatch the original, and prepare themselves for what's coming. One thing is certain, fashion may have changed, but the devil still wears Prada. The heart of any story lies in its characters, and The Devil Wears Prada 2 is no exception. When fans heard the sequel was confirmed, the first question on everyone's mind was simple: who's coming back? After all, the magic of the original film wasn't just in the sharp dialogue or glamorous fashion, it was in the unforgettable performances that burned into pop culture history. And yes, the sequel promises to reunite some of the most iconic faces we've ever seen in a fashion drama. At the very center of this universe stands Miranda Priestly, played by the legendary Meryl Streep. The moment her return was even hinted at, the internet erupted. Because let's be honest, there is no Devil Wears Prada without Miranda. Her presence is not just a casting choice, it's a necessity. Miranda is the spine of this story, the queen of icy elegance, the ruler of runway whose raised eyebrow could silence an entire room. When she steps back on screen, audiences will instantly feel the same mix of fear and fascination they did years ago. But what makes this return even more exciting is the question of how Miranda has evolved. She is a woman who built her empire in a world of glossy covers and luxury exclusivity. But the fashion world has changed. Social media, influencers, fast fashion, and sustainability debates dominate the industry now. Watching Miranda navigate this modern battlefield is not just intriguing, it's essential. And no one, absolutely no one, could bring that to life better than Meryl Streep. Then there's Andy Sachs, portrayed by Anne Hathaway. In the original film, Andy was the every woman, the outsider thrown into a world she didn't belong to, forced to adapt, grow, and eventually walk away stronger. Her journey connected with millions of viewers because she represented the sacrifices we make for success and the courage it takes to choose ourselves in the end. So, where is Andy now? The sequel gives us a chance to find out. Has she risen through the ranks of journalism, now powerful in her own right? Has she maintained a complicated respect for Miranda, or does their reunion bring back old wounds? And Hathaway's growth as an actress since 2006 only adds to the anticipation. Fans are eager to see how she re-inhabits Andy, not as the nervous assistant, but as a woman who has carved out her own identity in a cutthroat industry. And let's not forget Emily Charlton, played by Emily Blunt. In the first film, she was sharp, sarcastic, and secretly vulnerable, dreaming of Paris while living under Miranda's impossible demands. Her performance was so iconic it turned Emily Blunt into a household name. Bringing her back feels not only right, but thrilling. Imagine Emily now, seasoned by the fashion world, perhaps running her own empire, or still caught in its ruthless grind. Will she still have that biting wit? Will she finally step out of Miranda's shadow, or will the sequel pit them against each other in a battle of loyalty and ambition? The possibilities are endless, and Blunt's return is bound to add both humor and edge to the sequel's storyline. Of course, fans are buzzing about potential cameos and fresh faces. Stanley Tucci's Nigel is one name that constantly comes up in fan discussions. His role as the supportive, yet underappreciated art director remains a fan favorite. If he returns, it could give closure to one of the most heartbreaking arcs from the original Nigel's betrayal at the hands of Miranda. A reunion between him and Andy, or even him confronting Miranda years later, could deliver the emotional punch fans have been craving, but the sequel also needs new energy. Rumors suggest that fresh characters will be introduced, perhaps a rising influencer who challenges Miranda's authority, or a ruthless new editor competing for the same cultural dominance. Bringing in a younger cast could create a generational clash, highlighting how different the industry has become since the days of Andy carrying Miranda's coffee. Imagine a character who thrives on likes, followers, and viral fame, standing toe-to-toe with Miranda Priestly, a woman who built her empire on exclusivity and prestige. That contrast alone could fuel some of the most explosive drama in the film. What makes this sequel so fascinating is the potential chemistry between old and new. Watching Miranda, Andy, and Emily reunite, while also clashing with a new wave of characters, is like blending legacy with reinvention. It honors the first film while pushing the story forward in a bold, fresh way. And the actors stepping back into these roles aren't just revisiting old characters, they're revisiting cultural landmarks. These roles defined careers, inspired audiences, and set a gold standard for workplace dramas. Now, with years of growth behind them, the returning cast has the chance to deepen. expand and transform their characters for a new era. The truth is, casting is not just about who is in the film, it's about what they represent. Meryl Streep represents power, and Hathaway represents resilience. Emily Blunt represents wit and ambition. Together, they represent the heart of The Devil Wears Prada. Add in the possibility of Nigel's return and new blood in the form of modern fashion disruptors, and you have a sequel that doesn't just repeat history, it reinvents it. So when the credits roll and the lights dim, one thing is certain. This cast is not just returning to play characters. They're returning to remind the world why The Devil Wears Prada became a phenomenon in the first place. And if early buzz is any indication, this reunion will not just live up to expectations, it will redefine them. The real power of a sequel is not just in bringing old characters back, but in giving them a world that challenges them in new, unforgettable ways. When The Devil Wears Prada first hit screens, it captured the ruthless beauty of the early 2000s fashion industry. Back then, the battlefield was glossy magazines, designer houses, and the politics of office hierarchies. But almost 2 decades later, the landscape has changed completely. The sequel cannot simply replay old moves. It must throw its characters into the chaos of today's fashion world, where power is no longer held by magazine covers but by hashtags, viral trends, and the unforgiving speed of digital culture. Imagine Miranda Priestly, the queen of print, standing in an era where her iron grip on the industry has been loosened by influencers barely half her age. Once upon a time, Miranda's word was law. If she chose a designer, they thrived. If she dismissed a collection, it vanished. But now, style is shaped by TikTok stars doing 15-second outfit challenges, or by an Instagram influencer who can sell out a brand overnight. The tension of The Devil Wears Prada 2 lies in this collision between old-world prestige and new-world immediacy. Can Miranda adapt, or will she fight to reclaim her throne in a world that no longer bows to authority? That conflict alone sets the stage for some of the most compelling drama we've ever seen in this universe. Andy Sachs, too, stands at the center of this new world. When we last saw her, she had chosen integrity over blind ambition. But what does integrity look like now, in a digital world where truth is constantly blurred by filters and sponsorship deals? Perhaps Andy has built her career as a respected journalist, known for chasing meaningful stories. But in a world where clicks and virality dictate success, she may once again find herself caught between her values and the demands of survival. And what if her path crosses with Miranda's once again, not as assistant and boss, but as equals competing in the same sphere? The tension of Andy standing across from Miranda, this time on her own terms, could spark a battle of ideals that redefines their relationship forever. Then there's Emily Charlton. In the original, she was the assistant desperate to prove herself, often at Andy's expense. But time changes people. What if Emily is now a high-level figure in fashion, perhaps leading a powerful digital brand or running her own agency? The idea of Emily finally carving out her independence, only to clash with Miranda or even Andy, adds another delicious layer of conflict. Is she still the witty, cutthroat survivor we remember, or has success softened her, making her more vulnerable to the industry's evolving rules? Emily could easily become the wild card of the sequel, the character who bridges the ruthless traditions of Miranda with the modern reinvention of Andy. Beyond the characters, the story has the potential to tap into the most pressing issues shaping the fashion world today. Sustainability, for instance, is no longer just a buzzword, it's a revolution. Imagine Miranda dismissing the trend as temporary nonsense, only to realize her empire is collapsing because consumers demand ethical choices. Imagine Andy advocating for sustainable fashion, clashing directly with Miranda's old-school obsession with luxury exclusivity. That fight is not just about fashion. It's about legacy versus change, power versus conscience. And then comes the influence of technology. The idea of fashion houses using AI to design collections, or algorithms dictating what people wear, is no longer fiction, it's reality. How does a perfectionist like Miranda react to a world where creativity is outsourced to machines? Would she despise it or secretly exploit it to maintain control? These questions allow the sequel to move far beyond its predecessor, turning it into a sharp commentary on the evolution of art, creativity, and authority. Of course, no great story exists without personal stakes. One possibility is revisiting Miranda's personal life, which the first film only hinted at. The cracks in her perfect facade, the divorce, the loneliness made her human. In the sequel, those personal vulnerabilities could surface again, perhaps even as a weakness in her power struggle. Meanwhile, Andy may face challenges in balancing her career and her family or relationships, mirroring the sacrifices Miranda once made. This mirror effect, where Andy sees herself slowly becoming the very thing she once resisted, could be the emotional core of the story. The setting, too, must evolve. While the first film gave us the elegant offices of Runway and the dazzling streets of Paris, the sequel could take us global. Think fashion weeks in Tokyo, sustainability summits in Copenhagen, or influencer-driven events in Los Angeles. The sequel has the chance to explore how fashion is no longer centered in one place, it's everywhere, constantly shifting, constantly reinventing itself. Ultimately, the story of The Devil Wears Prada 2 is not just about clothes or bosses or ambition. It's about survival in a world that never stops changing. It's about how power adapts or collapses when the rules of the game are rewritten. And most importantly, it's about how people evolve when faced with the one challenge no one can escape: time. Miranda, Andy, Emily, and whoever joins them in this new chapter will not just be characters in a sequel. They will be reflections of us, grappling with ambition, relevance, and identity in a world where everything can be replaced in a single click. And that is why this sequel feels not just exciting, but necessary. Because as much as fashion changes, the hunger for power, recognition, and respect never truly goes out of style. Every great story needs that one spark, that first glimpse that tells the world, it's real, it's happening, and you're not ready for what comes next. For The Devil Wears Prada 2, that spark has finally arrived. While the full trailer is still under wraps, the whispers, the leaks, and the official teasers are already enough to ignite global anticipation. The first look at this sequel is not just about glossy pictures or behind-the-scenes clips. It's about reintroducing a cultural giant in a world that's been waiting nearly 2 decades. The first confirmed promotional image, released by the studio, is simple yet devastatingly powerful. A familiar silhouette steps out of the shadows, coat draped across her shoulders, sunglasses hiding eyes that don't need to be seen to command respect. There's no need for a caption, no need for a tagline, because the second you see that figure, it's Miranda Priestly. And in that moment, the internet doesn't just react, it erupts. Fans start flooding social platforms with one-liners, GIFs, and wild theories. Fashion blogs instantly begin decoding the outfit, which designer coat, which season, which subtle choices of accessories hint at Miranda's new place in the industry. One single image brings back the same chill that swept across the screen back in 2006, reminding everyone that power doesn't age, it only sharpens. But the first look doesn't stop there. Early reports suggest we'll also get glimpses of Andy and Emily in strikingly different worlds. Andy, standing tall at what appears to be a bustling newsroom, the kind of place where truth is hunted down every hour of the day. The details in the photo, a notebook clutched in her hand, the faint tension in her eyes suggest a woman still balancing her ideals against impossible odds. Meanwhile, Emily's first reveal shocks fans. Gone is the frantic assistant racing around Runway's office. Instead, she's commanding her own team, her style sharper, her voice stronger, her presence impossible to ignore. These sneak peeks don't just tease appearances, they hint at story arcs, at growth, at new rivalries waiting to unfold. What's especially clever is how the studio seems to be using the marketing itself as a mirror of the film's themes. Instead of releasing everything in glossy print spreads, they're leaning into the digital-first era. Instagram drops, TikTok teasers, viral clips of Miranda's signature sigh echoing over a black screen. Each piece of the campaign feels like a chess move, reminding fans that fashion and media are inseparable, both inside the story and outside of it. The rollout is not just promoting a film, it's immersing us in the very battle the sequel will explore. Tradition versus innovation. And yet, Even with all these tantalizing details, the studio keeps the biggest secrets locked away. No full scenes, no dialogue reveals. Just enough to stir up speculation, but never enough to satisfy it. Fans are left debating endlessly. What's the central conflict? Who betrays who? Does Miranda still rule, or will she be dethroned? The silence around these questions only fuels the excitement, building anticipation until the eventual trailer feels less like a release and more like a cultural event. Beyond the official reveals, the energy among fans is unmatched. Online forums are alive with predictions, fan edits, and dream sequences of what the sequel might deliver. Critics are already speculating about award potential, pointing out that Streep, Hathaway, and Blunt returning together practically guarantees powerhouse performances. Fashion insiders are treating the film as more than just entertainment. They're calling it a statement piece, a reminder that cinema and couture are deeply intertwined. And for audiences who loved the first film but weren't part of the fashion world, the sequel,